So we really do appreciate you being here and being part of the archives. And since I got a presentation, but obviously we can be pretty informal. So feel free anytime you have a question or you want a clarification on something, or you just want to make a comment on something, feel free to jump in at any point. Last year we had a similar session, and graphic that I did not adapt for a few reasons. But this kind of gives you a sense of some of the components of ArchivesSpace member community. ArchivesSpace, it's open source software. Anybody can use it. It's free to download and use. But in order to gain the application, make sure that it sticks around, we have a membership model. And that's really what when you're paying a membership fee, you're paying for the additional benefits beyond just the software and doing the things that you could do for free. So kind of outside of this, the larger ArchivesSpace, anybody can be part of the ArchivesSpace. The smaller circle, though, is the ArchivesSpace member. And I'll just mention a few of the components of the ArchivesSpace. So we have our own governance board. The members of the governance board are elected from the different levels of ArchivesSpace membership. We have one representative for each membership level. 3 of the members of the board represent our partners, New York University, University of California, San Diego, and University of Illinois. For the original institutions that kind of had a financial stake in the early days of ArchivesSpace, continue to have a financial stake in ArchivesSpace. Also on the board, it is the CEO of Lyrasis. Lyrasis is the organizational home for ArchivesSpace. And Lori can actually probably tell you a little bit more about what it means to be an organizational home. But essentially what it is Lyrasis provides infrastructure and services, other types of things that any organization would need, so that ArchivesSpace team, which is pretty small, can focus on the things that are very program specific and are specific to ArchivesSpace itself. So Lyrasis takes care of human resources and fiscal management, provides us with IT infrastructure, all these things that any organization would need. But we really just focus on the things that are archived. And so Kim and Lori and Lainey, who we saw this morning, and I were all Lyrasis employees, but 3 of us work particularly with ArchivesSpace. So see, the circle indicates that you're part of the member community, the ArchivesSpace program is part of it. We also have, in addition to Lyrasis, which is the registered service provider, we have a couple other registered service providers, Atlas Systems and the Keystone Library Network. Similarly to how anybody can use ArchivesSpace for free, anybody can provide services for other users of ArchivesSpace for free. Things like hosting or development or training, things like that. Anybody can do that, but our registered service providers have made a financial commitment to ArchivesSpace member fees by paying a fee and also by participating in the activities of the members. So they are people that have also like ability of these. In addition to our governance board, we have 2 member-driven groups that provide substantial guidance for the direction of ArchivesSpace. Our User Advisory Council, which is more on the functional side of things. Often a lot of the members of the User Advisory Council are archivists or metadata librarians, people that work in ArchivesSpace on a day-to-day basis, know it really well. And then our Technical Advisory Council tends to be more people who help others use ArchivesSpace from a development perspective, or our system administrators help people get it installed and running at their institution. Can also provide some assistance in making the application itself better from a technological standpoint. The members of both of our councils are appointed from the membership. So once a year, we put out a call for nominee councils, and then we're very fortunate now that we typically get more volunteers than we have spaces for. So then the nominating committee, which is appointed once a year from members of our governance board as well as the membership overall, works to both get the nominations as well as assess the nominations and determine who's appointed to the advisory board. Technical Advisory Council and User Advisory Council terms are 2 years. They are renewable as well. And I'll say throughout this presentation, we have certain formal opportunities for you to get involved with the ArchivesSpace community, but those aren't the only opportunities to get involved with the ArchivesSpace. And we really do appreciate the different ways that people can and want to be involved and try to find opportunities that are going to meet people's needs that way. So I just kind of wanted to go through 7, there are certainly plenty more, but highlight 7 ways that you as an individual can contribute to the ArchivesSpace community. One is, something that you're probably doing already on a daily basis in supporting your colleagues and sharing your knowledge about ArchivesSpace. And that can be as simple as just answering questions on our users group listserv, or, when you're out at a conference and someone asks you about ArchivesSpace, talking to them about what you've done, what you've learned so far. Kim is going to be really involved in this area and helping people connect more and share their knowledge about what they've been doing more. So soon we're going to have a blog and webinar series. We're also going to have additional ArchivesSpace sponsored events. This would probably be still like our major event of the year, but we're hoping to do more like regional forums and things like that too, for people that either don't go to SAA or for whom the location isn't convenient in a particular year, have other opportunities too. And we also, some parts of the country, people have already done a really great job of sort of self-organizing, self-mobilizing into local and regional user groups. So we definitely encourage that, and we also, aim to help people do that if they need help doing that. Then there are these more formal opportunities to contribute by participating in one of the groups that I mentioned. We're also increasingly putting together sort of shorter term or very more narrowly focused working groups to deal with a particular issue. Right now, you heard about the staff interface group this morning. That's a group that we expect to make a lot of progress, but not be on the hook forever to be helping us with it. Very soon, we're also going to put out a call for people who want to participate in the effort to the Mark XML exporter. And I should mention, the idea of the first 2 is not that you have to be a developer or a programmer and actually put code into the application. This is more like thinking about it as a user of the application, what you would need for it to be better, what you would need for it to be better. And then every year, of course, we have the member forum, and we have a call for people to participate in the planning group for the member forum. It can be a really great way, even if you're fairly new to the community, to really kind of jump in and get to know different. Another way you can contribute by filing bug reports. You probably heard a couple times this morning us mentioning Jira, which is our development catalog. It's there at that URL there. This is a centralized place where we track kind of everything from a development perspective that's going on with the application. What people want, what things we've made progress on, what things we've decided not to do for various reasons. That's all tracked in Jira. And anybody can sign up for an account in Jira. You don't have to be a member for that. But if you some people find Jira fairly intimidating, we're going to be working to make that a little bit easier, a little bit less intimidating. But even so, if you don't feel comfortable filing your own bug reports or feature requests, you can look and see what's already there and comment on what's already there. You might have some information that might help to explain it better or give a different perspective on it. So I definitely encourage you to look for issues in Jira and comment on issues in Jira that are of interest. One of the things to know is, of course, just because somebody wants something doesn't mean that a developer can take that conception that somebody has and turn it into something that's actually the application. So when you're filing a JIRA request, the more detailed you can be, the more sort of concrete examples you can provide, down to even like screenshots or wireframes of what you think it should look like. Those kinds of things really help in both assessing the issue and also a developer figuring out how to actually turn that into code that goes into the application. Anytime a new version of ArchivesSpace comes out, the preparation for it, there's a lot of testing that goes on in preparing to release this version of ArchivesSpace. Because as you would even when you're writing a word processing document, you know there's often it back over again, you find things that are issues, you want to change things. We find that in the application too, of course, on a sort of a larger scale. So there are kind of always official calls for testing every time that we're putting out a new release. We do have a testing group, a testing sub-team that's part of our User Advisory Council and Technical Advisory Council. It's a group that has a foot in both sides because it represents all perspectives on using ArchivesSpace. But beyond just the official testing group, we put out calls for testing anytime a new release is getting ready, prepared and put out. So another thing where like the more work that goes in up front, the better it's going to be when it actually comes out. So we definitely encourage you, even if you don't have time or you don't necessarily feel comfortable testing everything in a release, there might be a couple things that are coming out in a new release you're really concerned about or that are really important for your workflow. So we definitely encourage you to try those things out and let us know if they're not working or they're not working the way you think they should be working. That's important feedback for us here when we're getting releases ready. And we do also, and this is something we're going to be doing more and more of in the coming months, we also want to have more rigorous testing protocols as well as a body of sort of testing data that can test different scenarios of different things. So if you have information or data that you want to contribute to these efforts, even if you're not able to test yourself all the time, that's going to help us as well. Another way, and so now we're sort of ramping up to things that might seem a little bit more complicated or might take a little bit more coordination, but they're definitely within the reach of lots of different people, and we're happy to help people figure out how to make it within. So another thing that you can do is band together for larger feature or plugin development. So there might be something you want at your institution. You can't necessarily build it at your institution, but you know that 10 people at these other places want it as well. You can all work together, put together a specification, possibly think about whether there are developer resources in one of your institutions, or if you start pooled resources, you might be able to make developers available or subsidize development for. And another way that we can continue to make progress on lots of different fronts of the application. Sometimes we on the program side already have ideas of people that we could connect you with because we know certain people out in the community that are really interested in a particular thing. And sometimes you might be, you might be the first person to contact us about something. But we're always glad to talk with you about what might be a good approach, what might be a good strategy to make that into something larger, something that get more people. If you are a developer, and one of the things we are hoping to try to do this year is lower the barrier to doing development, even on a small scale. And development might sound intimidating, or it might sound like something that's not in your area, but one of the things that Lainey is especially good at is taking archivists and taking metadata folks and showing them how things that they do or things that they're already comfortable doing can translate into code for the application. So we're really going to be organizing some efforts to get more people mobilized around doing those. So if you get there, or if you're a developer yourself and you've written plugins or you've written scripts to make how you at your institution interact with the application better, we want to encourage you to share those with others because it's very likely that a problem that you're facing or an issue that you're addressing in your institution, other people at other institutions are wanting to address that as well. So one of the great things about using an open source application is that anybody can develop for it, anybody can share information about that. So we want to make sure that you'll encourage. We have a GitHub, a labs area in our GitHub presence where you can specifically contribute things that you've been working on, and you maybe think, it's not maybe 100% ready for prime time, or there's feedback that you would like to get on it to make it better. That's an area that specifically we encourage people to kind of experiment and try out different things. And that also, by putting things up on GitHub, other people can see what you've done and share what they've, maybe help make it better as well. And then from the last thing I'm going to be mentioning are if you're a developer or if you're somebody comfortable working in code, consider contributing your code to the core application. And not necessarily just restricted to code either. Consider whether there's documentation that you produce locally that you might want to contribute to. Again, this is a thing where if you're working on it, if you're concerned about it, there's a good chance that there's somebody else out there in the community who's concerned about it too. So rather than replicating efforts, reinventing the wheel, we want to provide platforms for people to be able to share that information. And when it makes sense as something that really should be just part of ArchivesSpace, something that comes with an installation of ArchivesSpace, we want to help you work with us to get it into the code of the application itself. So Lainey, this is another area where Lainey over the next year is going to be providing a lot more information about how you do this. Her core committers group is going to be providing a lot more information to the community overall about what kind of code meets the expectations for going into the core code, what kinds of characteristics would a function have, a feature have, or functionality have that means it's broadly applicable for the entire community, things like that. We're going to be doing a lot more to really get people understanding how that works and wanting to as well. And then the last plug that I'll give is just to say, no matter what, we just want you to get involved. So some of these things that I listed, of course, might sound like not exactly the kinds of things that you want to be involved in. Other things might sound like right up your alley. Whatever it is, we want to encourage you to get involved. And if you didn't see anything up there that's of interest to you, but you have other ideas of things that you could participate in or contribute, we want to hear those. So please do let us know. And there are all kinds of different contributions, and really all of them are essential to making sure that this whole thing works. These are all the contacts for kind of the major activities that I've mentioned. So the 4 program team members up there, if you're particularly concerned with our governance, Carol Mandel from NYU is the chair of the governance board. We also have for each, as I mentioned, for each of the membership levels, there's an elected representative for each level. And increasingly that elected representative is reaching out to people at the institutions in their level. So definitely feel free to treat that person as kind of a liaison for you or someone you can bounce ideas off of. And if you don't know who is the representative for your level, I'd be happy to point you in the right direction. Our incoming chair of TAC is going to be Max Eckerd, who's speaking this morning, and Dan Stasiolidis from the State Archives of Pennsylvania is our incoming chair for UAC. So you'll be seeing a lot of things from people on the listservs about the activities involved in all these different areas, but also feel free to reach out to any of these people directly as well. All of them and all of us on the program team definitely encourage, feedback, comments, any questions that would help you know more and get more out of being involved in it.